Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for Walker's Legacy, a conversation with Black female entrepreneurs in partnership with General Assembly. My name is Natalie Madeira Cofield, founder and CEO of Walker's Legacy and the Walker's Legacy Foundation. We're very excited to be sharing with you research that was conducted by Walker's Legacy as commissioned by the Small Business Administration Office of Advocacy and the National Women's Business Council entitled Black Women Entrepreneurs Past and Present Condition of Black Women's Business Ownership. After today's research discussion, we'll then hear from a panel of African American female business executives and entrepreneurs who will share with you their strategies for success in business and beyond. So, without further ado, we'll get started with today's program. Walker's legacy is named in honor of Madam C.J. Walker, the first self made female millionaire in U.S. history. Walker's legacy is now a national women in business collective with a mission to cultivate an ecosystem of access designed to inspire, equip, and engage a global network of emerging and established business women of color. We do so through our network of more than 20,000 women across the country who join with us for programs, for accelerator initiatives, for pitch competitions, and for networking opportunities with other like minded professional women of color in business. We conduct educational content, localized and online networks, as well as engaging programs. We also conduct research, understanding more intently the challenges faced by minority women entrepreneurs, as well as providing opportunities for policy improvement. And that is the purpose of discussing today's research report. So let's go ahead and get started. Assessing the U.S. women owned business landscape is critically important to just give us a barometer of where Black women fit. The state of women's business entrepreneurship is as such. Based on research and data provided by the National Women's Business Council, there are roughly 10 million women owned firms in the United States. These firms generate over $1.4 trillion in sales and employ over 8 million people. Yet only 2% of women owned firms have more than 10 employees, while 91% of women owned firms have no employees other than the owner. When we look at business ownership by gender, as of 2012, women own 30%, 36% of all privately held businesses, but make up 12% of receipts, while men own 55% of all privately held businesses, but make up 79% of all receipts. And then equally owned firms, both male and female, own roughly 9% of all privately held businesses, but make up 9% of receipts. The growth of women owned businesses by geography is a wonderful demonstration of where women are rising and triumphing in business. The top states for growth are Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, Florida, and Louisiana, with 4 out of the 5 fastest growing metropolitan areas for women owned business also in the South. There are 19 states in which post recession growth in the number of women owned firms is at least 10 points higher than pre recession growth, and most are in the north central or Midwest regions of the United States. Women owned firms by race and ethnicity show us that there are nearly 3.8 million businesses owned by women of color. This includes Black, Latina, Native American, and Asian women. In 2012, there were fewer than 1 million minority women owned businesses. Between 2002 and 2012, the number of non minority women owned businesses grew by just 9%, while the number of minority women owned businesses overall grew by 315%. This means that 4 in 10 firms are minority women owned. There are now more than 383 female veteran owned businesses in the U.S., and this is an increase of 295% since 2002. So, where do Black women fit in all of this? Let's review the research on Black women's entrepreneurship. First off, we talked a little bit about gender mix for women-owned businesses across the United States, and talked about 36%. African American women actually over-index in entrepreneurship, with roughly almost 60%, 58.9% of all Black-owned firms being started and owned by Black women. And this is an astonishing figure. This means that to talk about Black entrepreneurship, you have to also be talking very prominently about the role that Black women play in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and in the entrepreneurial landscape for African Americans. A few key numbers to highlight include there are 1.5 million total number of Black women-owned firms in the U.S., roughly representing about 46% of all minority women-owned businesses, which makes us the largest percentage of minority women-owned firms. Now remember, the number for all minority women-owned firms was 3.8. 97.5% of these businesses, however, have no employees. So almost less than 3% of Black women-owned firms, despite our astonishing growth, actually get to the point where we have an employee. And then from there, only 0.2%, less than 1% of Black women-owned firms receive venture capital investment in a report that was recently done by Project Diane. Nonetheless, Black women-owned businesses represent $42 billion in total gross receipts, which in and of itself is a very significant figure. Black women have historically been participants in the labor force at higher rates than any other ethnic group for any other ethnic gender mix in the United States of America, which is very, very important to also recognize. However, Black women continue to experience a weekly wage gap of roughly $123 against their white female counterparts. And much of this has to do with the industries in which Black females are mostly concentrated, which are lower wage and often require a lower amount of education. But nonetheless, I think it's very important to stress the fact that we have higher rates of labor force participation since the days of emancipation than any other ethnicity of women in the United States, dispelling the myth that Black women are not engaged, are idle, and are not actively pursuing opportunities to further advance themselves as well as their families. Another very astonishing figure to note is that despite the fact that white women represent $41,000 in median net worth as single white women, Black women only represent $100 for their median net worth. And so when we talk about entrepreneurship and we talk about some of the challenges with access to capital, it really becomes imperative to look at just how disproportionate our access to capital has been, both present day as well as has been in the past. Next, we look at average gross receipts by race or ethnicity. So despite representing the largest proportion of Black-owned firms, Black women business owners still maintain lower than average receipts against their counterparts in both gender and ethnicity, at $27,000 roughly for Black women versus $98,000 roughly for Black male-owned firms. The top 5 industries for minority women-owned businesses include other services, which is comprised of a number of different industries, but most specifically healthcare and social assistance, administrative and support and waste management, professional, scientific, and technical services, and then retail trade. The key motivators for Black women entrepreneurs based off of our research and our focus groups were overcoming discrimination, a commitment to providing for their families, and then also social entrepreneurship. So this notion of doing good for yourself, but also and equally doing good for your community. When we talked about key challenges for Black women entrepreneurs, it should go without any surprise that access to financing was a major key challenge, but so was access to business education, access to mentors and support, as well as fear, both fear of success as well as fear of failure, broader issues with discrimination, and then family responsibilities for Black women entrepreneurs who are typically more likely to be head of households and single income household earners. Despite all odds, however, Black women have maintained themselves as some of the most prominent businesswomen in American history. Women such as Madam C.J. Walker, for whom Walker's legacy is named in honor, otherwise known as her real name, Sarah Breedlove, became the first self-made female millionaire in U.S. history, founding Madam Walker and Company, a beauty brand. Maggie Lena Walker was the first woman to serve as a president and charterer of a bank in the United States, and she founded St. Luke Penny Savings Bank. Other women, like Janice Bryant Hayward, who is the founder and CEO of Act One Group, the first Black woman to run a billion-dollar business, as well as Kathy Hughes, founder of Radio One and TV One. So what does our research say? These are some of the recommendations that we came up with for our policy leaders, government leaders, congressional leaders, and the White House on what can be done to better support Black female entrepreneurs and build encouraging and stimulating entrepreneurial ecosystems for our women entrepreneurs. Well, first off, what we did in terms of our methodology was conducted research and focus groups with 50 women per city in Houston, Texas, New York, and Washington, D.C. And from this, we gleaned the following recommendation. Recommendation number one, increase the number of Black women investors. Given the lack of angel investors who are both women and women of color, we believe that qualified Black women should seek to become accredited angel investors. People invest in things that they feel comfortable with and people that they feel familiar with. So we need to encourage more Black women to become angel investors. Next, we need to improve and expand intentional information and research sharing targeting Black women business owners. This includes sharing information with churches, business associations, sororities, colleges and universities, and community groups and organizations. So many women said they didn't know about resources that actually exist to help them as they progress through their initiation with the formation of their business, or even as they grew and scaled their company to hire new employees or to establish new business locations. Next, improve and develop local community enterprise resource programs, such as community development financial institutions, CDFIs, that provide microloans of 50,000 or less to small business owners. These are often alternative sources to financing than more traditional bank loans, which at times can be either more difficult to obtain or more expensive to obtain in terms of access to capital. And then also, our recommendation four was to further develop mentorship programs and networking opportunities for Black women businesses. This includes work that Walker's Legacy is already doing to develop a database of lists and local resources and business owners in areas to assist with the networking process. And then the creation of more formalized programs, such as those created by Walker's Legacy, which directly connect Black women business owners to mentors and sponsors, such as what is transpiring with our Prospectus Online Business Accelerator program. Lastly, we recommended to encourage entrepreneurship curricula at historically Black colleges and universities in general. We believe that early exposure to entrepreneurship for young women of color is critical, and we need to ensure that they are becoming aware of opportunities that exist for them, but also starting the process of establishing a solid foundation for which to build businesses upon, which includes saving their money and their earnings to be able to put them in the best financial position possible to pursue their entrepreneurial dreams. And I mentioned lastly, but recommendation number 6 is also to conduct additional qualitative and in-depth research on Black women business owners. This was the first ever research study that was conducted by the Small Business Administration and the National Women's Business Council, specifically on Black female entrepreneurship. But it is but of just one research type that can be conducted to understand more poignantly the challenges and opportunities that exist for Black women entrepreneurs throughout the United States of America. If you would like more information on a report, which was shared with everyone who registered for today's program, you can visit us online at www.walkerslegacy.com, or you can go to the National Women's Business Council at www.nwbc.gov to download the report. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you have a phenomenal panel discussion with your business leaders there in-house today. Again, my name is Natalie Madeira Cofield, founder and CEO of Walker's Legacy, and we're so excited to have you join us.